Okay, everyone, welcome to the Next Big Future. Today we talk about the big future, which is the singularity and super AI, super intelligence, which, doesn't get any bigger future than that. With me, I have Randy Kirk. I'm going to go over some information about that everyone's talking about the singularity, and so we need to as well. So XI and Tesla, I think, will be the first to get to super intelligence, and this could drive things up to something crazy, like even like $1 billion, $1 billion per share. People go like, "What? That's just nuts." But I'll explain why that could be possible. So Elon Musk at a Y Combinator event said that he thinks super intelligence, he defined that as intelligent AI that can do things better than any human for any task.
Any one human.
Any one human for any one task. Right.
Right.
Any task. So in that 2026, for sure, that will happen. Sam Altman talks about this being 2026 to 2027, although he has right now the models, presumably GPT-5 that they're using in-house, ready to release in a couple of months, is already better than human in many tasks. He didn't say all, but it's better in a lot of ways. But beyond that initial event is what happens to the world in the 10 to 15 years after. So if it happens in 25, 2026, then by 2040, what's it to the world? I can go over that with data there. So there's this website called Epic AI, EPOCH.ai, and they have something called the GATE model, where they talk about AI automation leads to significantly accelerated economic growth rates 2 to 20 times compared to the normal average of about 3% per year. So 2 to 25 means 6% per year, up to 60% per year. That's it. Automation for growth. These guys, look at all the models, every model that's released, look at how much training compute it has, look at all the parameters. So they're analyzing these things with a lot of data. And they're saying that this is something that can indeed happen, and that would mean huge amounts of impact for the world economy. Just for some context, from the time of the Industrial Revolution, around 1850, to today, we've had about 100 times increase in the world economy. Went from about 1 to 2 trillion up to nearly 150, $200 trillion worth of world economy. So this has happened before, and you can see that even 10x from 1960 to 1950s to today. So you've had these large growth, but we're going to concentrate that into a shorter period of time. And you can see that could be easier to go from a faster acceleration is because it takes 100 years to go from 0 telephones to 100 million or 500 million telephones, but then it takes 10, 20 years to go from 500 million telephones to 5 billion cell phones. Right. So the each wave of substantially new technology takes less time. So Epic AI talked about right now we're at 0% automation of the economy, right? And that starting 2026, it rapidly scales up in these first two curves, value generated default, value generated conservative, that will get to 80% automated economy by 2032 in the default case, and 2034, 2035 in the conservative case. And then full automation, nearing the 100%, either 2034 to 2040 or 2040 to 2045 is their data-driven expectation of automating the economy. And we'll go into more detail about what that means. What does automating the economy means? But we looked at the Industrial Revolution 100x. This is a logarithmic exponential type chart, and they're saying that we're starting right now at that 0 level, which is actually 10 to the 14, $100 trillion. And then the first notch up is 10 to the 16, which is 100 times more economy. And then 10 to the 18, another 100 times, another 100 times. So you're 1 million times at the 10 to the 20 line, which happens in their default case by 2045, that we get actually by 2042, 43, we get to 1 million times the world economy potentially from this data-driven analysis. Basically, it's like the 100% doubling every year is when, over 10 doublings, 10 years, you can get, 1,000 times, and having that happen twice, you get to 1 million. Going from 3% to 3%. The world has seen a large, nearly world-size economy grow at 10 to 15% per year, year over year, and that was an economy called China.
Right.
So China, with 1 billion people, has grown at 10%, even has had years where it grew 15% in 1 year in a catch-up economy, where basically it got all of, they went from, not developed in the 1970s, Mao wrecked the economy, to catching up, 20 years into the 90s and into 2000. So they got all the cheat sheet of the answers that worked by looking at the developed economies. Similar AI can give us a cheat sheet to what can work better.
We probably have a bunch of other examples too, because we had like North Korea was completely destroyed. I'm sorry, South Korea was completely destroyed. So in the 50s, it was nothing. Singapore had 250 years of war where they were absolutely nothing. Japan had been bombed into oblivion. And so all of those places, must have had some of those years must have been at these levels of growth also.
That's right. And then you can have large companies growing at 20, 30%.
Right.
The big tech companies growing at that rate. So basically, if you have big tech growth across the whole system, then you can get to the 30% number. So just also in terms of like, what does GDP mean? For human GDP, population times GDP per person, right? So 8 billion people times $15,000 world average GDP per person gives you $120 trillion economy, right?
Right.
AI GDP, maybe it's number of chips times GDP per chip, right? Or number of bots and cars, robocars, times GDP per unit vehicle, something like that. So then if you drive the number of chips up to 1 trillion, and then you have, $15,000, $100,000 per thing, then you can get to a massive economy that's 1,000 times bigger than what human has, right? Because you're multiplying a different thing. So that is the mega unlock, where you automate chip production completely. So TSMC says, okay, we're making 5 million chips per year now. They expect to increase by 10 times by 2030 to go to 50 million chips. These are the AI training chips they're keeping, but it's also accumulating, although after 2 or 3 years, the previous version's out of date. So maybe it can go to 1 billion, 2035, 100 billion in 2040 if things got faster, right? But that is a certainly limiting factor. If it's GDP is AI GDP is number of chips times productivity, then you have to unlock and get more chips, get to the trillion chips.
Right.
And one way to do that might be 20,000 terawatts of power on Mars, which is 1,000 times more power than the world economy has now. And just by making solar all over Mars, then you could power 1 trillion chips, or even 3 trillion chips versus, so 1 trillion chips versus 1 billion of humans. So that is what the really crazy levels of 100% per year, you're going to need to do something like that, or mass produce nuclear. You have to up your power levels a lot in order to power all the chips and to do that kind of stuff. So that is a key factor between really crazy good growth 100 times to utterly insane, nutty 1 million times. Also, people don't know what is super AI. Just having things on a chart, it's kind of like, okay, big numbers, what does that really mean? Robotaxi scaled 2026, so you're automating transportation. Robotrucking, automating the movement of goods and not just people. That could start scaling 2026 to 2028, maybe totally meaningful at 2030 or something like that. Some of these things take a few years. Humanoid bots getting to millions, tens of millions, 1 billion in 2035. That happens in a major way by 2030. Having all those bots work in factories, unbox process for Tesla, having the factories convert not just one factory, 10 factories, 100 factories, 10,000 factories, and getting those fully automated, upping production by 10 times, 100 times. Fully automated coding. And this is the difference between, for driving, autopilot driver assist versus robotaxi. Right now we have coding assistants which can double or triple the productivity of some people for coding, versus the AI data center just piles out and validates, here's what your specs are, here's what you really want. You say you want me to build your TikTok and launch it. You want me to make your Stripe payment system. You want me to make whatever. I'll start making that. I'll make coding for the chips and just validated code that's all correct. Don't have to have people validate it or only, validate some results or something like that. Get that as much people out of the loop so it's completely automated. Just your money printing machine, just we're shoving out money fully automated versus, a person pressing and stamping the printing of the money, right? So fully automated coding means we have 1,000 times more lines of code, 1,000,000 times more lines of code that's perfectly validated and does whatever you want. Automating the jobs completely, and then automating science. Automating science is something that Elon Musk and Sam Altman and anyone else who's leading the AI companies, that's where they really get that far off look of like what really matters. It's what Sam Altman calls the high order bit. Difference between industrial revolution, non-industrial revolution is steam engine, electricity, cars, planes.
Sure.
If you can actualize the science and the engineering, that's what makes the difference between going up 100 times, 1,000,000 times more. And they describe it as a feedback loop. More and more compute for AI data centers, more and more automation, more and more production, and just cycling through that flywheel of improvement. And that we're going faster with this is shown in that epic tract for the last 15 years, that we've been growing the amount of AI training per model by about 4 to 7x each year. But Tesla is now going to go to 50 times, where they released Grok 3 in February with 100,000 H100s, and they could have the equivalent of 5 million H100s by the beginning of next year. So that'll be a 50 times increase in 1 year, which would normally take 3 years, even at the fast pace we've had before. So having that accelerated growth is a huge thing. Grok 3.5, we're expecting maybe late this month, maybe next month.
Any day. Yeah, right.
Any day. It's been a month delayed. It used 4 times the training. On that Y Combinator call, Elon gave exactly how many chips are in each of the Memphis data centers. There's 2 Memphis data centers. The Colossus has 150,000 H100s, 50,000 H200s, and 30,000 B200s, which is the equivalent. Those 230,000 chips are the equivalent to 400,000 H100s. So 4 times the compute for Grok 3.5. And they can fire up the second Memphis data center with 110,000 B200s any day now. And that will have the equivalent of 550,000. It's already more than the first one.
Wow.
And I expect them to install 100,000, 200,000 chips every month. So then they'll get to 300,000 or 250,000 B200s, which would be the equivalent of 1.5 million H100s. So that'd be 12 times the compute of Grok 3, and then the 1 million chips early next year.
So you had said in a video that we did a few months ago that Elon has the hammer. I think you said the sledgehammer.
Yeah.
So he has the sledgehammer in terms of just way more compute than anybody else.
Right.
So then it really comes down to, in terms of whether Elon wins the race, so to speak, it's not going to just be about that hammer. It's going to be about what the hammer breaks up, or what the hammer pounds in, or what the hammer builds.
Right.
And right now, of course, AI, ChatGPT is in the lead, and Microsoft seems to be trying to undermine ChatGPT or OpenAI at this point. Maybe for the reasons, for the reasons that we've heard about Sam Altman. Do you think there's a point at which, or do you think the point comes sooner or much later, where the Elon Musk enterprises, passes ChatGPT in terms of consumer or commercial use?
So the big thing is 3.5 a lot better because it has, four
Elon
times yeah, he said that it's a lot better. So, but we have to see that it's a lot better because it's going to use 4 times as much compute as the Grok 3, which is 8 times more than any other system. So, OpenAI has come out with their GPT 4.5 and their other models, and the one with the most compute has about half as much as Grok 3. But I know they have far fewer chips, but they can get to that amount of compute by running the model for longer. They started working on it earlier, and they finished later. So they ran the models for, say, 4 times as long, even though they had 4 times fewer chips. Right. So they then got in there. So Grok and 𝐒𝐮𝐧𝐝𝐚𝐲 have not pulled away substantially using their superior compute. And it's also because they started later. And so their developers didn't have all the, there are clever tricks and programming that the OpenAI team has, because it's as Elon says, it's the chips and the data center, it's the team, the programmers doing it, the algorithms, and then the data. I think the data is superior at Claude and Anthropic. So, but having the compute advantage, gives you this extra level. Like, it's like I get so much from the compute, and then if I get more from the compute, then if I eventually get the same amount on the programming, then my advantage should show up. So they have to get equal terms with everyone else on that. The reason I expect roughly equal terms to occur is that Elon can afford to hire good people, and he can afford to manage them well. And the there's 4 other models that are all bunched together. Google's close, OpenAI's close, the DeepSeek China models are not that far off. So there's Anthropic's close. So it doesn't seem like it's unique to have. Why would the xAI team stay inferior to the other teams? They all get the same tricks, and they would then be able to view the fact that they do have more compute to win. So we need to see that happen.
What do you think about the idea that the money model that they're running on X, in other words, getting folks to do their payments, to do their mortgages, to do their banking, whatever, using the money model as the way to generate the users? So kind of going money, and then that pulls people back into search or other kinds of use cases.
Yeah, so I think it's 2 or 3 things that they can do. So one, they already have about 300 million daily users, 350 million daily users, 600 to 700 million monthly users, which is comparing to like 3 billion on Meta, which Meta's models are terrible. AI models are terrible, despite having a lot of data and a lot of people. Google has 2 or 3 billion people using their systems. They have better data from search and from YouTube. And they leverage that. And then OpenAI has about 405 million people using it. So it's not just about the usage for data to get your model good, but it's but when you then monetize and create the flywheel, it's important. So going from the level that xAI has now, they have the growth that you talked about, which is the payments and the money. There's also they did the deal with Telegram, so they get potentially a few hundred million users from that. They have it's only to their premium users, but which is only tens of millions, but they have 1 billion people signed up for it. Starlink will go to all cell phones later half of this year for internet data and for voice. So that when they get to 2 billion phones, that will then present xAI and Grok 4 to the world there, so they'll be able to get more access that way. And then what else gives them more data?
I have noticed at least at the highest levels that people are using 2 or 3 different systems.
Mhm.
and they seem ready to switch.
Right.
They're testing all the time. But what I do also think is that there's a lot of folks that are already on OpenAI that are now kind of used to it.
Mhm.
And they're going to be, and there's also enterprise versions that people are purchasing their subscriptions to, that it's gonna create some stickiness.
Right. Right. So that goes to the how much time and what's in front of me, right? So the All In podcast talk about that,
Right.
that the competition between the big tech guys, between Google, TikTok, uh, YouTube, Facebook, is how much time of the day, how many hours of a day, minutes of a day do I have you there with me? So if I have something open, if I have X open all the time, I use the Grok model. If I'm always on Facebook, I would just use their AI. If I'm on Google search, I'm using their AI, right? So if I get used to opening up ChatGPT, and so they're coming out with their new phone, right? They want to keep the AI in front of you, because switching, between anything is just that hassle. So they want to get that stickiness. But if things are sufficiently superior, then you can overcome stickiness. You know, Yahoo was the number one search,
Yeah.
and then
Until
Google
it
was
wasn't.
superior until it wasn't, and then Google became superior, and then it killed them.
Yeah.
So if you're close in the game, then the stickiness matters. But if you fall substantially behind, then it's like, okay, well, that's garbage. I got to switch, right?
Yeah. 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 Okay. Um, yeah. All right.
Mhm.
Okay. I
Okay, so we
interrupted
go
your
back.
slideshow.
Okay, I'll go back to my slides. Um, Yeah, so something that's particularly bad is the Meta Llama models. They came out, and were considered a substantial failure. Even just where the best open source model that went away because DeepSeek, the China models, are better open source. The Qwen models are better. Like there's like they're like 25th, whatever, on the model list. And
Wow.
so now Meta Zuckerberg was trying to offer OpenAI developers $100 million signing bonus and $100 million or more per year in salary, and then trying to offer like Ilya Sutskever like $30 billion. So being behind, he's really worried.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so and then Google and Gemini have done really, really well. And how fast they're building it is unknown. And GPT-5, we're now finally expecting later this summer. So OpenAI is working hard on that. And this goes to the largest training run, about 1 million times bigger is what these guys are expecting. And then the costs are dropping. So part of this, we're going to use so much of it, is that it's good for the user, the experience can get better and better. We're gonna get so much more. We're gonna use our agents all the time, have 1,000 agents, digital agents, 1 million digital agents working for us at a affordable cost and profitable thing. So then it goes to realizing what will happen with the physical AI. We have the robotaxi launch in 2 days. The human drivers, again, I think the wait times matter, how that scales out. Um, the low price car, getting cyber cabs next year. It's all part of the drumbeat to getting super intelligence as well as super intelligent real world AI.
Right.
So then that would be Tesla bots as well. And then applying, again, the chips are everything. And then this will multiply labor, transportation, coding, all these things. But basically, it's the chips that are multiplying. And then Tesla is the only one, Tesla X are the only ones that are full stack. They're going to make their own chips. They make their data centers better. They're going to get competitive with NVIDIA. They'll have AI5 and then AI6 inference chips and have those deployed in 100 million devices. They will use AI for chip design and then get it into robotaxis. So all those things that make up super intelligence, they're going to apply it everywhere. And also they're going from energy as well. So
Right.
they they don't depend on anyone else, although they work with others.
Sure.
They can make sure that there's nothing will fall through the gaps. They won't be bottlenecked on it. And then so that basically is the superintelligence world.
All right. Let's talk about two practicalities.
Mhm.
So let's start with the broad. We'll talk first about Brad Bradford Ferguson's practicality. He said, we don't need any more than we've got right now. He says, it doesn't matter if we get to super intelligence this year. Doesn't matter if we get to the singularity in 2 years or whatever. That's all great. It's all going to be fantastic for science and, for understanding the universe better and for making medical discoveries and everything. We need way more compute to get all those things done. But he says, on a practical level, for you and me and the business down the street and everything else, you got it already. It's ready to go.
Mm-hmm.
And that people should just learn it.
Learn what? Learn the AI?
Learn the agent, learn how to use the agents.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, Larry said it to me on Monday night.
Mm-hmm.
He says, Randy, he says, learn how to use these agents, man. These are amazing.
Right.
The agentic world is here. And that once you have agents, it's like having employees for free.
Right.
Doing these jobs for you,
Mm-hmm.
going and in my case, maybe going out and pulling out information from the internet that I might want to use to do my shows, potentially going out and looking at other competitive shows to me and saying, here's what they're doing that you're not. I mean, there's so many different things that you can do with these agents right now. And you only have to train them once.
Right. Right.
So Bradford was basically saying, for the average guy out there, we're already at 1999.
Mm-hmm. Right.
We're already there. We've got all the tools we need to build the website.
Right.
Which was basically what everybody was looking for in 1999 was, how do I build this website? I got to have a website. We're there. We're there.
Right.
And unlike 1999, Randy Kirk can go build an agent workforce.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I can actually go and build my own apps now.
Mm-hmm.
I go on these systems and I just say, here's what I want the app to do. Or here's an app over here. Just do it, make it do the same as that other app over there. So we didn't have that in 1999. 1999, I spent 1988, 88, 87, I spent $100,000 to build an app that was kind of an Amazon type app. And it still wasn't enough. We gave up because we didn't want to put more into it.
Right.
But it was like, we were spending huge amounts of money to get that app built. So we're at a world now where if you own a business, or even if you are an employee of a business, you can make yourself 10 times, 100 times more valuable by creating your own workforce.
Right.
Who's now providing you with a lot more of the whatever it is that your boss is looking for, or whatever your customer is looking for. And you're getting it for essentially free.
Right.
And then as they've talked about on the All In podcast, and Bradford also mentioned, the other thing is you're probably paying money right now to somebody to have an app, Salesforce or some of these other, systems out there. You might be paying thousands of dollars a month to have these apps run your business. You can pay somebody one time to rebuild that, may be better than the one that you've got now that's more unique to your situation. And then you don't have that monthly bill anymore.
Right, right. Yeah, so it's definitely something where being a better early adopter, becoming a super user is vitally important. And I talked about the leading edge of it and where the value accrues to the big companies. But then there's a kind of at the personal level, it's using these things better, adopting them sooner. The technology will rapidly flow down to the people, and also like being able to make your own model. There's an open source model that can have it running on a computer, and having something that's a bit more powerful, may make more sense to run a full-fledged model, because there's a big gap between the one that runs on 10 gigabytes or 20 gigabytes versus 2 gigabytes, that you want to have that extra memory to do things, to run agents all the time. If you run locally, then you don't have to have a subscription for your agent. And those agents are getting more and more capable. So I say that they're pretty much here now. If they use a few different tools together, it can get all these things sorted out for you, so you can get the real utility, versus trying to just use only one tool. For now, it may all get unified, but in order to be first, you may need to use a few different things to get the full, video production, website, and all that kind of stuff done using the cursor programming system and that kind of thing. So it is something that is a project that's going to take a few weeks or 10 hours a week for over a period of time, so totaling up to 100 200 hours, but it's an investment that is worth it. Just like back in the 90s going to the internet, the people who got there first had a big advantage in terms of getting better position there.
Okay, so the other side of that is, we think about, the massive improvements in productivity that will come from this for businesses. And I'm thinking right now more of businesses than I am individuals, but it's true for individuals as well. So what I found was, which actually provided me a living for the last 17 years, is that there's a bunch of early adopters on this, anything having to do with the computer. There's a bunch of early adopters and there's a bunch of never adopters.
Mhm.
So I don't want to make fun of anybody specifically, but I can tell you that there are still retailers in the world who do not have a website.
Mhm.
There are
Right.
still manufacturers who still have not automated any aspect of their manufacturing,
Mhm.
nor do they keep automated records. There are small businesses that are still doing things by hand in the
Right.
United States.
Right.
So there's the never adopters, and of course, then
Mhm.
there's people like me who jump in the middle and go try to find those never adopters and bring them into the modern world and get paid to do that. So
Mhm.
that's gonna be one of the big jobs. I think it's gonna be a bigger job than it was in the last decade.
Mhm.
Which this last decade is a great time.
Mhm.
I had by myself. Well, I
Mhm.
had, an assistant in the Philippines and from time to time, a little help here in the US, but basically by myself running 22 clients.
Mhm.
Now you could probably double that. I could probably be running 44 clients, helping
Mhm.
them with their marketing, which none of them wanted to do. They
Right.
didn't want to do it, much less did they know how.
Right.
So this seems to me to be where one of these people talk about what's the job going to be.
Mhm. Mhm.
The job is going to be to know AI.
Right. Right. And it basically goes to like the difference between being internet literate versus literate. I think that kind of is the difference between AI literate versus non-AI literate. Is that it's like you can read or write versus not being able to. So it's because the productivity difference is going to be so large, even bigger than than whether I use some latest technology or a computer is, am I able to read for myself? Because you're talking, can I talk to the more intelligent thing in the right way? And, um, getting that advice, being able to accept it, that's the difference because become better at planning for you, become better at doing things for you. And it's like you're not availing yourself of the best employees and that kind of thing.
Yeah, and so from the standpoint of early adopters this time, so in my experience in business, obviously you're always trying to come up with a better product. You want your product to be niched in such a way that you can keep other people out. You want to make it as inexpensively as possible so that you're not blowing out of the market by lower priced things. And then you've got your overhead. You want to maintain, a low overhead so that even though you do all those other things right, all of a sudden you've got crazy overhead, which blows out your profits. And so now you're out of business anyway. All of a sudden, all of those things are jumping up almost like a Singapore that we just talked about. You're kind of jumping from nothing to everything
Mhm.
for even the smallest business.
Right.
But if they don't do it, it may not be like this last 40 years or even the last 10 years where you can get by.
Right.
An example that I think of is we've been talking about the semi trucks, automated semi trucks, and if I'm running automated electric semi trucks at 10% the cost of what my competitor is running running a diesel with a driver.
Mhm.
And then I decide to use my semi trucks to pick up my raw materials, and I use my semi trucks to deliver the finished product to my customer. I'm picking up 8%, maybe 8% on both ends.
Right.
It'd be like Amazon, who had a 3% advantage over every other retailer in the country just because of their automated systems.
Right. Right. Yeah. The gap is huge. It's like horse and carriage versus car. Like the gap is just too huge, and basically you cannot compete in the world without leveraging the capability that's coming. And it's already here, like you said.
It's already here. It's already
Right.
here. It's ready to go. That's the crazy part. Yeah. That's what Bradford taught me the other day. I'm like, oh yeah, it's already here.
Right. Right. Yeah. So it's something that people need to, you know, hop on and get ask AI to give you a, you know, 4-week or 8-week crash program, and then list out what you need to do, what you need to study, what tools to use, and then send you the links on the YouTube training, send you the link to what to download, and help it plan it out for you. Because it can give you that advice. You can ask a few different systems to improve it, and then to keep working on that thing. So yeah, ask it for advice, tell you how to train yourself, and have it bootstrap you.
Yeah, crazy.
Yeah. 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 So it's exciting times. It's already happening and going to get crazier, and it's about adapting, as fast as possible. Yep. Okay. So I think that's it, unless you have anything else.
No, that's it. I think that's enough. I could go on for an hour, but I think that's
Yeah.
another show.
Yes. Okay. So thanks for joining us, and then follow Randy and me, on YouTube, X as well, and we'll keep you informed. Ready for the singularity. Okay. Thank you. Bye-bye.